It comes from a good place from what I've seen within my own firm and other firms. The client managers are so keyed into servicing the client that they put the client's needs first and foremost before thinking about how that we're running a business and we should be charging for it. There's obviously different kinds of ways that we leave money on the table. We can leave money on the table by doing the same thing year in, year out and not charging for it. Trust distribution minutes, for example, is one example. My own firm, I'm looking, do we actually charge for that? Doing a payment plan or an extension, do we charge for that, or do we just do that for free? There's a lot of things where you might be leaving money on the table because you're just not charging for every service that you're offering. But I'm sure that we can look at that. That's one issue, but I'd like to key in on the other one that comes to mind, which is clients calling up and asking for ad hoc services, and you deal with the proposal part there. So for that ad hoc type work, existing clients who are used to maybe getting one proposal from us every year or every couple of years, how do we go from that with an existing client who calls up for ad hoc work to, in your own firm, in your own experience, to kind of training the client that every time they ask us to do an ad hoc job, we're going to price that, and actually say you need to pay us for that in addition to what you normally do. How did you kind of overcome that hurdle both with your staff and with the clients?
Yeah, so look, coming back to the 80-20 rule, okay, how we can actually help ourselves approach this proposal stage. How can you be a better proposal making firm? Okay, it starts with having, as much as you can, a clear menu of services. If you're not clear about your own menu of services, then surely your staff aren't, and surely your clients wouldn't be, okay? Having a clear menu of services gives the opportunity for your staff to be able to recognize, oh, that's a trust distribution situation. Oh, that's a accountant's letter situation. If the menu of services isn't, if attention isn't paid to the menu of services yet, if it hasn't been agreed upon what the menu of services is, it's really hard for anybody in the firm to know what they should be selling. It's like going to a restaurant and then there's no menu. Like, how does anyone make an order? Okay, so starting with the menu of services is so key. It just allows us to be able to account, to give us the opportunity to be proactive, okay? Now that's the 80%, all right? So that's what you can account for. In a true ad hoc situation where it's the 20%, okay? There's no menu of services for it. You're not even sure what you need to do for the client, all right? You're not even sure how you can help them. They just said, they seem to be going through some sort of situation and now they're in front of your eyes. They're sitting in front of you and they need help. It's okay to be able to draw up a proposal that just charges by the hour. Look, if you want me to go and talk with your lawyer about this loan thing and I'm not sure how all right, let's not dwell on, trying to make a perfect proposal and, go back to my team and figure out the perfect menu of services for this. Maybe we can just put together an hourly billed proposal, just have that opened up and we'll just pump it with timesheet and then see how that goes. And as long as that's communicated to the client, that's how it's going to be charged and their expectations are managed, that's okay, all right? Yeah. I just want to stress though, in those ad hoc situations, they require like triple the amount of leadership than when you have actually had those menu of services pre-made already. Yeah. Anytime an exceptional situation occurs or an ad hoc situation occurs, and you might have figured out the part of the equation about how to charge them, which is by the hour, if it's truly outside of the skill and capabilities of your firm, but you still chose to take that on, it's something that the senior client manager needs to be paying close attention to, because those ones they have no structure. It can be totally random, okay? But where ideally we want to be having an extraordinary system, so it's on us, the owners, to actually come up with a menu of services. It's on us to be able to train them what we can provide.
Yeah, I think that's really key. There's a lot of wisdom in that that you need the menu of services to deal with making proposals, which is really helpful. One example that comes to mind, I'd love to find out if this is common to the firms, is we had a client manager in the past who a client emailed asking him to do something. He stayed back really late at night, did the job for the client, and then tried to charge the client for it. And they said, "Oh, I was just thinking out loud. I didn't really want to go ahead with that." If anyone's had that happen before. I spoke with Ed about that, and he said it's relatively common. That's why I'm keen to hear other people's experiences. One way of dealing with that is Ed calls it a thought bubble. The client just has a thought bubble. And they're kind of just workshopping something out loud. It's very, very reactive to then go and just start going to work. And I think what we found with us is that having a proposal and saying, actually, here's how much it's going to cost roughly for us to do that. Do you want us to go ahead? It just draws a line in the sand, and the client has to actively commit. It's not enough for them just off the cuff email or verbally say, "I'd like to look into this," and then you go and do all the work and then try to charge afterwards. I guess before we look at kind of, I'd put some of the things that we were discussing just then in the chat. So in the Wize Vault, there is a video 15.8, I believe, has the menu of services. There's also a menu of services, I think it's the marketing or sales tab in the Wize Hub, if you've already got your Wize Hub going. Logistics for designers. What if they need more help or services but are not wanting to pay due to budget restraints? That's a tough one. I know what Ed said to do in that situation. I'm interested to hear if Thomas or Kristy or anyone else has any advice on that as well. For Ed, I asked Ed about this during the COVID pandemic in Australia, where the stimulus packaging was coming out. He's pretty good about this. What he'll do is he'll have a conversation with the client, and you've got to have that leadership that kind of Kristy was talking about, that maturity to be able to have this kind of a conversation. He'll have a conversation with the client and say, "Look, we know you really need your help. You need our help. We know you can't pay us as much as you usually would. Are you okay if we do this job completely offshore?" Or he'll say, "Can we put you on a payment plan over a year?" Or, he'll string it out as much as he can so he can still help those clients, but it's got to be win-win. So he won't do the work, and we would not recommend this either. You wouldn't do the work for free, or you wouldn't say, "Yeah, pay me when you can." You've got to have some kind of deal up front. It's a tough one. I think logistics for designers, I think you've got to think about this in terms of what kind of client it is. If it's an A-class client that's just been, is going through a rough patch, that's going to be temporary, that might be a different conversation than if it was a brand new client. For a brand new client, it's easy for me to turn away a brand new client or a recently engaged client who can't afford to pay us, because what's the cost for us not to work for them? Do you know what I mean? There's no big tangible cost there because they can't afford to pay. So I'm not missing out on anything by turning them away. But I think I'm keen to hear Thomas, Kristy, anyone else on how you deal with this issue.
I mean, like in most cases, I wouldn't do it, but but you don't want to turn away business. We have to try and find options. It's like, if they can't pay 100% upfront, we work out all sorts of things. Maybe pay a 50% deposit now, pay the rest on completion, just making sure that that's in the contract. We use Practice Ignition for that. Like Tim mentioned, breaking up into installments over 12 months. And there are so many options. There are facilities out there where they can fund that invoice for you, and then a third-party finance company will go and collect installments from that client themselves. So really, it's just, if their budget is so truly constrained, it's just see, okay, what can they work with then month to month? What can they pay for, and how long would it take for that to actually pay off? You just want to avoid having too much debtors, right? You just don't want so much of your money locked up in here, because you're investing your staff. Our staff is the product. If we're giving it away for free and we're not getting paid for it, that's going to cause a lot of issues. So we just want to be careful there.
And I think there's a temptation, if you need more work, there's a temptation, and if your staff aren't at 100% capacity, the temptation, let's just do it. But I think as Thomas said, you've got to make sure it makes financial sense for your business to actually engage it. But I do think there's a difference between a A-grade client who's going through a momentary rough spot, we would treat them differently to like a relatively new client who, you know, was a tire kicker. So
I think too, on that, there's also another opportunity that if the client is struggling to see the value, but they can afford the service, they will say they can't afford it. The great thing is we can tell because we look at their financials. And if you make that decision that actually they can, they just don't understand the contribution you can make to their business, you could offer them to do 1 month free of that service, possibly, if it's something that can be added on. And then at the end of it, they can decide if they want to downgrade back to their existing model or they want to stay at that upgrade and then pay.
Get them a taste of it, how, like what it's actually worth to them. Yeah. It's a tough one. Some clients are just tire kickers and they just don't see the value in things and they just want you to do everything for free. And if they run their own SME, you can kind of go back to them like, would you do that though? And you know, if they are, they're probably really not a good client to have on. But yeah, no, I hope that helps.